before I introduce you to everybody, I wanted to see where you are on this. I think that when you put certain energy out into the universe, you attract it back. So I think us meeting and connecting is like I attracted you, you attracted me to be in our worlds because good people find good people.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Yeah, like I, again, saw you through a mutual friend on social media, saw your energy, saw your messaging, and I was like, this guy gets it. So.
Thank you.
Like I said,
Can you give the audience a little background on who you are, what you do, and how awesome you are?
All right.
You have permission to not be humble. Just totally go.
All right. So I'll give you like a quick just kind of pitch, and we can elaborate more on it. But my name's Tom McGee. I'm a full-time online fitness and nutrition coach. I run an online subscription. I also do a lot on social media as a creator, and I live in New York City, but I also have a place in Connecticut. Bought just recently a small home called the Riverloft. So rent that out part-time. And that's kind of like the brief summary about me, but I'll kind of like open it up as we go.
That's awesome. So what would you say, you've done a lot. You did real estate, you're in fitness, you're in personal development, you're in content creation. What would you say the biggest life lesson is that you learned?
Ooh, the biggest one. There's so many different lessons along the way. Something that really redefined my career and it put me into what I'm doing now is really figuring out like what, I believe everyone has a couple just natural strengths and finding those strengths that if there's a correlation between those natural strengths and like also an organic interest, seeing how you can marry those two together. And I feel like for the longest time, I was doing things I thought I was supposed to do or looked good, but when I was able to go into the things that I really like, it just seems like that's when things really started clicking for me. So to summarize, that's really what I feel like is a big game changer.
Living life on purpose.
Yeah, and finding kind of like what your unique strength is and what your interests are and trying to marry those two as much as you can. And even without having like clear guidance of kind of where it's going to go, as long as you are true to yourself and really push it, I feel like you're going to attract the right people and you're going to become obsessed about what you're doing. And I feel like that shows. And then of course, financially, it may not make sense at the beginning, but usually it ends up well. At least it has for me. So I'm just speaking from my own personal experience.
You get me excited. I'm so glad you said that because I've been on this journey for 4 years now. I don't know how much research you've done, but I started in 2020. And we're in 2024 now. And I started with selfie videos in my bedroom. And then I started investing money into production deals. And I invested money in going to conferences. And I've spent stupid amount of money on getting on stages. I have hounded people to get on their podcast, hounded people to get on my podcast, and just did anything that it took to get in the room. And I will publicly say I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on just being around those people, on just getting there. Seeing that, hey, I showed up. Showing up is my biggest thing. And that speaks volumes. And now, 4 years later, I've just made all that money back in 3 contracts.
See, that's a perfect example.
So you got me all excited that you just said that.
Yeah.
What is the best advice you've ever been given?
The best advice I've ever been given? I'll have to think about that, but I think it just goes into, like, it sounds corny, and I really thought it was BS when people would say, like, find your passion. And I know some people are going to like push back on that, but I think that if you can, it's hard. Sometimes you have to search for it, but if you can find that, it just seems like, at least for me, life starts to just make a lot more sense. And as long as, and here's the thing too, like I think it's about what you did with your brand and what you're doing. You've leaned into something obviously that you're good at because, you know what I mean? Like, again, you caught my attention through social media. I was like, I want to connect with this guy. And I think that through the resilience that I'm sure you had to go through to not give up throughout that process, like if you don't like the process of what you're doing, you can maybe be okay at it,
right, but
you're not going to be great.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that I've learned, and it seems like you're also on that path as well.
I'm learning, for sure. I'm big on being a student of life. And I don't know if that's going to answer or hear to everybody, but I really have been a student of life. Like this last 4 years, it's like, okay, spend that money, fly to that conference, throw pasta at the wall and see if it sticks. Like I've been through X, Y, and Z, as we all know publicly. There's somebody has to be going through worse. Like let's be realistic. Somebody always has it worse.
Totally.
So what if my perspective and my experience and my connections can help somebody not have it as bad? That's just been like my purpose. I mean, my grandfather, right when our alcoholic father left, my grandfather stepped in and he was raising us. And his nickname was Nice Guy Larry. And he was Nice Guy Larry because he put everybody first. And he was very selfless. And somebody the other day had asked me, Dylan, why are you so pushed and driven on helping everybody else? And I was like, well, I want to make my grandfather proud, and that's exactly what his values are, is help everybody. Be Nice Guy Larry. Give people support, give people help, and expect nothing in return. And it always comes back. Do you believe in good and bad karma?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's something to that. I think going back to also, like, what are your core values? And something that I think about is, at the end of the day, like, and I know it sounds kind of corny, but like, I feel like there's no better feeling than helping someone and seeing them, giving back and helping see that person grow. And what I've been able to do with kind of my profession is tie my natural interests and, strengths of really all about fitness and nutrition, and helping to kind of help people put that puzzle together for them to see them, feel better, look better, and obviously be healthier. And when you see someone that struggled for a really long time and that you just see it, and then you're able to connect the dots for them, it is the best feeling in the world.
It is. What a great segue. I am big on mentorship. I mentor kids with learning disabilities, which is such a beautiful process. But I've been mentored by some pretty great people, and I think that all for me is like having somebody believe in you.
Yeah.
It just puts a fire under you, and you believe in your clients, and I think that that's probably what it is, because I had Craig Siegel, I've had you, I have my producer, all believe in me. And I'm like, okay, I can't let them down. Like, that's the mindset. So it's like, if you're my coach, it's like, okay, Thomas believes in me, and he's giving me the time, and he's giving me the nutrition, he's giving me the skills and workouts in the gym. He believes in me. I've got to now follow through. I mean, a beautiful process was I just hired a film and editor, Alex, and he practices gratitude all the time. I'm like, okay, Alex, we're going to go here, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And he's like, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm like, cool, don't waste it. And he's just like, all the time, every time he has a second, he's like, thank you for believing in me, but being able to put him in these situations and see him thrive, it excites me. Like I told him today, I was more excited to see him in the environment than being in it myself.
Right. Yeah, I want to go back to something you said, having some people believe in you, or like believe that you can do it. I think just on my journey, when I left, I used to work a corporate job, and I actually had some success with it, but I was 28 years old, but the day-to-day of what I was doing, I definitely was not in love with it. And I felt like I wasn't serving my best self and reaching that sort of full potential. Like, I was just about, at that time, just trying to look like I had the image and try to make the money. And it got me places to where I was actually, working for a top firm in commercial real estate. But I remember thinking, I was 28 years old, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to really regret it if I don't go after what I really enjoy. I don't know how it's going to turn out. But if I can figure that out, it's like, I feel like I've hit the lottery. And that's been the journey I've been on for the last really 5 years. And, when I did that, a lot of people questioned what I was doing. And people that love me too, that they just were worried, because they're like, you're leaving a secure job that has a very clear blueprint of how you kind of work your way up, to then doing something that's untraditional. Unpromised. And, you look at the career path and there's not a clear one. But I deep down believed in myself that I go, look, if I'm going to put the same energy that I put into this job into something that really lights me up, something that I'm like, I just will do anyway, I'm like, there's no way I won't just figure it out.
That stopped.
So don't worry about it. But so, you know, it's just, but through that process, I remember I had, you know, just like one friend that's like, hey, Tom, I believe in you. I believe you can do it. And there was a time where I was like, you know what? I needed that one person just to give me that affirmation that I'm on the right path. And that's when I had some big breaks with my career and like really taking it to the next level.
What a great story. I have a similar story. I was 19 in my room making selfie videos, and I ran into this producer, Carl Michelle. He'll probably watch this. And to paint the picture, I was the only white person to ever go in and out of that studio with a deal, right? It was all like rappers or wannabe rappers or next up rappers. And I was like, I want to film a podcast about dyslexia. And he went, you know what? Okay. And I won't say the exact numbers for him, but I got a huge discount and he took a chance on me. And I was grinding that out because he's like, you know what? I believe in you and your message. Let's get it out there. And I was in that podcast studio 2 times a week, every Wednesday and every Saturday, filming about 3 podcasts a session with different guests. And the way it worked was, if I couldn't find a guest on those scheduled days that I had paid for, he will find one. And one was Tony Marino, who walked in Fashion Week this day, put us on the red carpet. Like, those connections are crazy. And the minute he did that, I started doing this. And then I got Brandon Godoris in my life, and he's like, let's do this speaking thing. And I went to speaker school, and I invested, and I traveled. And it's just like the believing in you is just, it does. It lights a fire under your butt. And I go from, oh, this is a hobby to, I've got to make this work. I have no choice. I really enjoy having my back up against the wall. It excites me.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Yeah, you know, it's kind of been a crazy journey, and you know, I've heard about your story, just kind of like what you've gone through and the things that you've overcome when you're younger to put you to the position that you're in now. And I think what's really cool is it seems like the resilience that you've built up, right?
Yeah.
Through going through the school system and stuff like that, when it wasn't, you felt like, you know, the easiest thing for you.
No.
But now it's like when you find something that you really enjoy doing, it's like you're off to the races, you know, because
Yes.
you know what it's like to struggle, but when you find something that's really meant for you, it's just, you don't stop at the first barrier, you just keep going. And I think that's what you're doing. I think that's awesome, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate you recognizing that. And you know what's funny? You say that. Not a day of this has ever felt like work. Not a day, not a second.
Really? For me, sometimes it does feel like work. I'm not gonna lie, but in the big picture, like, I really do enjoy what I do, and I think that what's kind of interesting, and I really feel like the future of where things are going, it's really gearing towards helping sort of these entrepreneurs really have stable businesses that can actually probably scale. And I think that going into when I first started, it wasn't very clear, but I'm starting to kind of see that with, you know, just the new technology that's out there and social media. Like, you can, as a small brand, really have some serious influence.
100%.
So I think what's interesting is because I came from like the corporate world and stuff like that before, it's like people are kind of questioning, like, can I do this on my own? And the tools that are becoming easier and easier to run your own business and things like that. And I think that there's a real opportunity, and it almost seems like there's a shift in the market that I feel. Yes. I don't know if you feel that too.
I do.
Where people are trying to do their own thing now, and they actually can, and they can probably make a good living doing it. Because when I started this, I wasn't sure I could, you know, I was worried about, like, how am I gonna make ends meet and stuff like that. But, you know, I've been able to buy a property. I have a place in New York City, and, you know, have people working for me now. And now I really see the opportunity of where this is going too, because I think with the advancements of like artificial intelligence helping to do some of the manual processes that really were slowing me down, and I think in the next couple of years that stuff is just going to get easier and easier, and it's going to be really interesting to see how kind of like a small business can really scale but not lose that sort of like that quality that I feel like is needed.
100%. It's funny you say artificial intelligence. Me and Alex are going to Dubai because there's this company building AI for dyslexia and learning disabilities, and they want to use me as a spokesperson to go on tour with them to go speak about it. And they're paying us an absurd amount of money to do it, but to pitch it in schools, to do this. And it will actually help kids with learning disabilities be able to decode it, where it will decode it for them.
Yeah.
Where like say you see an A backwards, if you use the AI and you input it into these PDFs, it'll flip that A backwards so you know it's an A. It's like the most wild thing I've ever seen, so it's so funny you say that.
One thing that you mentioned, so I'm dyslexic too. But the thing that I think is really interesting and something I didn't realize when I was younger is I thought it was like a curse. I was like, man, it's a disability. It sucks because first of all, like I just felt like I didn't fit in the normal classroom and like couldn't really connect the dots. But what I found was there's also a lot of strengths to these dyslexia. And I actually, what's interesting is like, people always think dyslexia, you have trouble reading and writing. But when I can read and write fine now, but when I was younger, it was tough. But now what I learned was when I'm reading and writing the things that I'm really interested in, like for example, like before this, I was looking at this sort of like research document talking about how DNA testing is going to help people, not just from like a physical perspective, but from a health perspective, help prevent some of these preventable diseases so people can see like, maybe I'm at a higher risk for heart disease.
Wow.
Or maybe I have a food sensitivity for these certain foods. And I'm reading these like very detailed research documents and that stuff that I was like, man, I never, when I was younger, thought I'd be doing that.
No.
But because I can connect the dots between why this is important for me to read and the ability of like where this is going, because this is going to help me grow my business and it's going to help me better serve my clients. It's like, that was an unlock for me. And when you're in school, at least from my perspective, it was like, you have to learn this material and then you're tested on this. And it's like, but why? Why do I need to learn this? Right. When I was younger, I didn't connect the dots. But when I was able to connect the dots, and it really was like, it really just changed the way I thought about everything.
So you said that there are strengths to dyslexia. I'm curious on what strengths that you've discovered. Because I've discovered some, but I want to know if we're on the same discovery or if you discovered something different.
Yeah, so I think everyone's a little different, but I have to say that I think, at least for me, like I love the creative side. And I love seeing the big picture and like where things are going, and also I feel like I'm kind of like naturally an entrepreneur in a sense. I think that that's a very dyslexic kind of commonality between a lot of people, I think that just perseverance too is a big thing, because the school system isn't really made for people that think like us. But in the real world, it actually is it actually lines up really well.
Yeah, we thrive.
Yeah. And, and it's like, look, I think all that stuff happens for a reason. And when I was younger, I thought it was just, again, it was bad. But now I look at it, I'm like, it shaped me who I am today. And it's going to probably be the jet fuel that's going to, in the vision that's going to help me get to the next level.
Yes. When you said, because the first thing I thought was, creativity. Like, I was like, I wonder if he experiences that. That was the first thing I recognized, was creativity. Yeah. Like, I'm very creative and I can zoom out.
Right.
I can zoom out and go, that kid in his bedroom making selfie videos will be on red carpets one day. But here we are, right? Like little things like that, like I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to do step, 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 and be that leader. I think dyslexia is a superpower. I tell people the words are backwards. You're not.
I like that.
And they are. I mean, you're not backwards. The words are. And I used Orton Gillingham. I don't know if you used a program.
No.
I used Orton Gillingham to overcome it, and now here I am, and I get to mentor kids, and it's so fulfilling. I have so much passion and pride in what I do. But where were you mentally? Because I want to leave my corporate job, and somebody in the corporate world that I've worked with and traveled for. I want to take that step, but it's obviously terrifying.
For me, I can't speak to anyone, but it came out of a feeling of just feeling like so. I feel like people only change when they have to change. And I was at that point where I was like, I have to do something different.
Right.
And I'm going to make this work. And I don't care what it's going to take.
Right.
And that was tough. And look, I was older. I was 28 when I pivoted.
Yeah.
So you're way ahead of me in your journey. Like, I mean, I wasn't even thinking like the way I'm thinking now. So I think that as long as you keep doing what you're doing, you're gonna figure it out. And I believe that you're on the right path.
I appreciate that. My goal is to leave Wall Street in the next year.
That's great, man.
That's the goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part for a lot of people is taking that step back. And what I had to do when I left my corporate job is I had to cut back my expenses. I had to cut back my lifestyle for a year to make it work. You know, I went from a good corporate job to making a lot less as a trainer in New York City. And let me tell you something, when you're making what I was making in New York City, it's not easy. But that year also really tested me and it shaped me. And it's like, if I can go through that process, you know, what I deal with now, because, you know, there's always stress when you run your own business, but it's just like, man, I just feel like there's so many different levels to this. And I just feel like nothing's gonna stop me. Like, there's no way I'm going back to what I was doing before. Even the bad days, even when it gets stressful, it's like it beats what I was doing before. Like, I like the ability to have control over like your destiny. You know, something I never had an issue with was my work ethic.
Me either.
You know, like, I think that's something that is just like really ingrained in me, and I think that's ingrained, like when you talk about your dyslexia and stuff like that. It's like, you know, I think there's nothing more frustrating than, at least when I was younger, was people say like, oh, he's lazy.
I got told I was a stupid kid. Did you get stupid kidded?
Yeah, I mean, no one said it to me really to my face, but like I felt like that. But what I realized was, you know, like, I actually, from a friend standpoint, like, I had a lot of good friends. So not all of school was bad. Like, I had a lot of good friends, and, you know, from a social aspect, did really well. But I just felt like it never was right, and I felt like my intelligence wasn't shown in the traditional school system.
Yeah.
And when I got out of that, I felt like that's when I was really able to thrive and, you know, be creative and show it in different ways.
What inspires you?
Inspires me? I think that it's really about finding, what inspires me is when someone speaks their mind and they're not afraid, and are able to kind of articulate their points of view with, not from a sense of weakness, but a sense of, like, you know, strength and stuff like that.
Where do you think you get your mindset from?
You know, I don't know if there's, like, I got it from someone. I think it just was developed over my life.
With experience and stuff?
With experience and stuff like that, yeah. Because
you're I'm like, everything you're saying, we'll see it in the playbacks. Like, you're saying certain things, I'm getting all excited like this. I'm like, wow, I could not agree more with that. Like, across the board is like green lights for me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, where's his mindset stem from?
Yeah, I think that, you know, ultimately I think about, well, I really feel like there's a couple of things. Like, I really am on a mission to help people in my career, in my things that I'm naturally gifted in, look their best, feel their best, and improve their health. And at the same time, something that also kind of lights me up is, because I'm kind of going through a non-traditional path, it's like, if I can figure this out, I think it opens up a doorway for other people that aren't happy. And it doesn't have to be what we went through. It could be someone that just wants to do something different. Show them that there's another way. And you can not just get by, but you can actually live a very good, comfortable life and feel more fulfilled in what you do.